Welcome to the Rapport Review Podcast, your space for education, conversation, growth, and change. Sandy and Chip, with every brief episode, will take a moment to slow down, reflect, and explore counseling, its challenges, and victories that shape daily lives. Whether you're a therapist, a client, or simply someone on a journey of personal development, you're in the right place. Let's dive in, learn together, and keep moving forward. This is the Rapport Review Podcast.
Today we are wading into a really confusing and honestly a rapidly changing world.
A very concerning one.
Yeah. We're exploring the landscape of unregulated substances. You know, the pills, the powders, the weirdly colored drinks you see sold right next to candy bars.
Right there, the checkout counter.
Exactly. We are doing a deep dive into what people are calling gas station drugs.
And it really is a market that's just fueled by, regulatory lag and sometimes just outright deception.
Deception.
You walk into a convenience store, a smoke shop, and you see these products promising, a mood boost or relaxation or pain relief.
And they look harmless.
They're packaged to look harmless, or at least, legal.
That packaging is a huge piece of this. The bright colors, the cartoons sometimes, or just the word herbal slapped on the front. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're going through the sources you've provided to understand what these products actually are, why they're so popular, and I think most importantly, the very real, very specific risks that come with them.
And to be clear on what we're talking about, we are focusing only on these unregulated products, the ones sold without any kind of official FDA approval or really any serious oversight.
Right.
And the research really hammered this home for me. The marketing is intentionally misleading. They're consistently labeled natural dietary supplements, legal highs.
Even when they're not.
Even when they contain potent, untested, and often just dangerous synthetic chemicals.
Okay, so let's get into that. Let's unpack the supply and demand here. If the risks are so high, and we're about to hear just how high, why are people turning to these things? What's driving this demand?
Well, the investigators pointed to four major drivers, and they really paint a picture of desperation meeting opportunity.
Okay.
First one is just incredibly easy access. There's no ID, no prescription, sometimes not even an age check.
Unlike, say, regulated cannabis or a prescription.
Exactly. They're just there at the corner store 24/7.
That immediacy is powerful, especially if you're in pain or feeling anxious.
Absolutely. And tied right into that is the second reason, affordability. They're almost always cheaper than a prescription or, street alternatives.
But that sounds like a trap.
It's a tragic trap, isn't it? Because the sources show the risk of dependence is so incredibly high that the initial, affordability, it just vanishes.
Because you need more and more of it.
Right. Are you really saving money if you're developing a severe, rapid addiction?
So the short-term benefit is completely wiped out by the long-term cost.
Precisely. The third driver is, I think, maybe the most dangerous. It's this false safety belief.
The idea that if it's for sale, it must be safe.
Yes. This really widespread, dangerous idea that because a product is on a shelf legally next to a soda, it has to be okay. It gives people this false sense of security.
Okay. And the fourth driver, you mentioned curiosity and avoiding detection.
Yeah. So for a lot of users, the motivation is to avoid detection. These manufacturers are smart. They're constantly creating new synthetic compounds that are specifically designed to fly under the radar.
They're trying to stay one step ahead of drug tests.
The whole goal is to make chemicals that don't show up on a standard 5-panel or 10-panel drug screen.
No?
So it links the demand directly to things like employment or probation.
A fascinating and a really problematic business model.
Yeah.
But no matter why someone is using them, the universal danger is the same, right? You just can't trust the label.
Never.
We're talking unknown ingredients, unpredictable doses, contamination. That lack of any standard is the one thing that connects all of these different compounds.
This is the Wild West of chemistry.
So let's start our deep dive into the specifics. Let's begin with substances that mess with the brain's opioid receptors, which is a terrifying category to begin with.
It really is.
We'll start with kratom. That's Kratom.
Right. So kratom comes from a plant. It's from Southeast Asia. And it's sold everywhere. You see it as a powder, in pills, in these little shots.
And it's advertised for pain relief or for a mood boost.
Exactly. But what's so fascinating and what the research underscores is that its effects are intensely dose-dependent.
Okay, tell us about that spectrum. What happens at a low dose versus a high dose?
At a low dose, it acts more like a stimulant. It gives you energy, focus, alertness. But as you increase that dose, the effects completely flip.
The Kava.
At a high dose, it acts like a strong opioid. You get profound pain relief, but also heavy sedation. And the risks are, they're substantial. We see reports of dependence, nausea, a rapid heart rate, even seizures at high doses.
And the government's response to this has been messy, to say the least. It's a perfect example of regulatory chaos.
It really is. The legal status is a total patchwork. It's legal in a lot of states, you can buy it online, but it's banned in others. And all the while, the FDA has been issuing these serious, repeated health warnings.
So they're making it clear that just because it's available doesn't mean it's endorsed.
Not at all.
But if Kratom is concerning, the sources paint an even darker picture of a substance called Tianeptine. It's even earned a pretty chilling nickname.
Yes, Tianeptine. People call it gas station heroin. And look, that nickname is not just for shock value.
It's descriptive.
It's descriptive. Tianeptine is a chemical that actively mimics what an opioid does in the brain. People seek it out for that same euphoric, pain-relieving feeling, often thinking it's some kind of legal, non-addictive alternative.
And the packaging on this is especially bad. We're talking brand names that sound totally harmless, like Zaza or Neptune's Fix or TD Red.
I mean, it's the ultimate example of a company intentionally hiding what a drug really is.
Wow.
And the sources are crystal clear about the health crisis that results from this. We're seeing opioid-like withdrawal symptoms that are incredibly acute and severe.
What does that look like?
Agitation, severe body aches, high blood pressure. It's so bad it often requires professional medical detox to get off it.
Yep.
And there's the very, very real overdose risk, too.
So you're saying this is a substance that requires a medical detox that's being sold next to a lottery ticket machine. Has the FDA weighed in on this?
They have. Repeatedly. They've warned against Tianeptine, and they've stated unequivocally that it is not legal as a dietary supplement. A lot of states are trying to ban it, but the commercial pressure to keep selling it is huge. The profits are astronomical.
That's terrifying. Okay, let's shift gears from the opioid mimics to the synthetic and psychoactive spectrum. So substances designed to feel like marijuana, but that carry completely different and often much greater risks.
Right. And this brings us right to delta-8 THC.
You see this everywhere now.
Everywhere. In gummies, vapes, drinks. It gives you a noticeable psychoactive effect, kind of a mild high, some relaxation. It's very appealing to people who are used to traditional cannabis.
So here's where the legal loophole comes in, right? Because this sounds so similar to the regulated product, but it's available almost everywhere. How does that work?
Okay, so this is some fascinating chemical maneuvering around the 2018 Farm Bill.
Right.
That bill legalized hemp and its derivatives as long as they had less than 0.3% delta-9 THC, which is the main compound in marijuana. So what manufacturers realized is they could take legal hemp CBD and chemically synthesize delta-8 THC from it.
So they're exploiting a legal difference between delta-8 and delta-9, even though they're both psychoactive. That's the loophole.
That's the key. Precisely. Because it's synthetically derived from hemp, a lot of places consider it federally compliant. It lets them bypass all the state-level cannabis rules.
And that's why it just exploded in popularity.
It exploded. But the lack of oversight is a massive problem.
Why is the production process so risky without that regulation?
The sources really emphasize the contamination risk. See, to turn CBD into delta-8, the process requires some really harsh chemicals, strong solvents and acids.
And if the manufacturer is careless,
those toxic residues can remain in the final product. Plus, the dosage is wildly inconsistent from one gummy to the next.
And the warnings on this are getting louder.
Yeah, the data is stark. Poison center calls are going up sharply, especially involving kids who accidentally eat them. They see the brightly colored packages and think it's candy.
That vulnerability is a huge problem. Now, if delta-8 is on the sort of milder side of the spectrum, we have to talk about the extreme end. Synthetic cannabinoids.
Spice or K2.
Better known as Spice or K2.
Spice and K2 are an immediate catastrophic danger. These are powerful synthetic chemicals that get sprayed onto dried plant material. People call it fake marijuana.
But it's not.
It is not. The research is unequivocal. These compounds are engineered to be far, far stronger than natural marijuana. They bind to the brain receptors in a much more unpredictable, overwhelming way.
What does that actually look like for a user? What kind of episode are we talking about?
It's devastatingly acute. The sources detail these immediate severe effects. Intense panic attacks, extreme paranoia, full-blown psychotic episodes where the user just loses all contact with reality.
And physically?
Physically, you see seizures, severe agitation, and acute kidney injury, or even total kidney failure.
So this is less like a high and more like a trip straight to the ER.
That's the critical takeaway. The sources highlight that. The high rate of emergency room visits is directly tied to overdoses on these specific compounds. They're made to be potent, but that means the line between a dose and an overdose is almost non-existent.
That is just heavy. Okay, let's transition to our final category. These are products marketed for, calm or focus or anxiety, but they carry this incredibly high addiction potential.
Right, even when they come from plants. We can start with Kava, that's K-A-V-A.
Okay, Kava.
So traditionally, this is a root that's used in Pacific cultures for its calming effects. You find it sold in drinks, these little shots and capsules. It works as an anti-anxiety agent, and people definitely feel drowsy and dizzy from it.
But the sources flagged a serious long-term risk here.
They absolutely did. The potential for liver damage with regular or heavy use. Now, the severity is debated, but the risk is real. It's recognized globally.
And it interacts with other things.
Very badly. It's incredibly unsafe when you mix it with alcohol or certain medications, because it just amplifies the sedative effects. It increases the risk of respiratory depression and injury.
And that brings us to the last one, Phenibut. Phenibut. Not FDA approved, but sold everywhere for focus and anxiety.
Phenibut is maybe one of the most insidious examples of the risks we've discussed. It's highly problematic because the number one risk is the swift, severe development of dependence.
Even though it's marketed as a nootropic, a focus enhancer.
Right, but it acts on the brain's GABA receptors, which is similar to powerful anti-anxiety drugs or alcohol.
Walk us through that dependence. The sources talk about both physical and psychological.
So psychological dependence is the craving. You crave the relief from anxiety, the focus. Physical dependence means your body has chemically adapted to it. It needs it just to feel normal.
And Phenibut creates both.
It creates both. And addiction can develop frighteningly quickly, even with regular use at what seem like normal doses.
Which means stopping isn't just hard, it can be life-threatening.
It leads to what the sources call a severe withdrawal, because the drug suppresses the brain's excitability. Stopping it causes this dangerous rebound effect.
What are the symptoms?
We're talking profound confusion, uncontrollable agitation, and critically life-threatening seizures. And on top of all that, the overdose danger is extreme. It's incredibly easy to take too much, which leads to respiratory depression, unconsciousness, and death.
So we've covered this frighteningly diverse list of chemicals. We've got opioid mimics like Tianeptine,
Potent synthetics like spice.
high-risk sedatives like Phenibut, regulatory loopholes like Delta-8, all available in one store. The sources really demonstrate one critical distinction we have to synthesize for the listener.
The single most vital lesson in all this is the difference between legal and safe. They are not the same thing.
Not at all.
The high risk of overdoses is always there across all these categories because the manufacturer's only goal is to avoid regulation, not to protect public health. So you get a supply chain where products might have hidden opioids or heavy metals or other toxins.
And then you get these dangerous, unpredictable interactions if you combine them with alcohol or a prescription medication.
Exactly.
And the sources emphasize that this whole situation is a constant cat and mouse game between chemists and lawmakers. A product might be legal in one state today.
And then regulators move to ban it tomorrow. It just proves that the word legal means absolutely nothing about safety.
Right.
It is the cycle of the analog. As soon as a government bans a specific chemical formula, let's call it compound A, the manufacturers just tweak the molecule a tiny bit to create compound B.
Which is often more dangerous.
And entirely unregulated.
Yeah.
And is back on the shelf the next day, legally.
That constant creation of these analogs, that's the structural reason this keeps happening. It's a critical look at regulatory failure. Now, for anyone listening who might be dealing with an emergency or addiction concerns related to any of this, the sources do provide concrete resources. Please seek professional help, and you can always call 988 for crisis support.
That number is vital, a critical resource in this incredibly risky and ambiguous market.
This deep dive has spanned such a huge range of unregulated chemicals, from things that cause severe opioid withdrawal to things that induce psychotic breaks. It just reveals these extraordinary gaps in consumer protection.
It really does. And that leads us to the final provocative thought for you to mull over.
Okay.
Given that the FDA and health organizations are actively publicly warning us about substances that are still legally and readily available on store shelves, what does this environment teach us about the true definition of consumer protection? Especially when this rapid chemical development consistently outpaces any state or federal regulation. Is the system we have now designed to protect the consumer or just to manage the aftermath?
Thank you for joining today's Report Review. If this episode connected with you, inspired you, or gave you something meaningful to reflect on, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need it too. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and take good care of yourself. This is Antonio, signing off from the Report Review podcast.